Chapter number 11. Here comes Jamie Lynn. My friend Margaret walked in my door and announced, on a dark day years ago. I didn't know what she was doing there, but even in the gloomy state I was in, I could see she was on a mission. I burst into tears to see that woman roll in with all her gusto. Come on, she said gently, motioning me up from my rocking chair, where I was rocking my newborn daughter, Jamie Lynn. Margaret didn't ask any questions. She just picked up the baby from my arms, grabbed grabbed the diaper bag, and strode out the door. I had no choice but to follow. Very few words passed between my friend and me as we drove out of my driveway and down the road. We stopped at Sonic to get soft drinks and then drove to Margaret's house for a sandwich. When she returned the two of us to our house, I sat back down in the rocking chair. I realized something. My problems were still there, but somehow they didn't hurt as much. 9 months earlier, we got the shock of our lives when I found out I was expecting our third child. Brian was a teenager, and Britney was almost 10 years old. Jamie and I thought we were done with having kids, and there's no way we would have planned to bring another child into our messy lives at that point. Jamie vasectomy underscored this notion considerably. Turns out he never went back to the doctor for all that important follow-up appointment. I was running the daycare, which I was blessing but still required much of my energy and time. Jamie's business, though, was faltering to the point that, despite the stability of the daycare, our finances were in the dire straits. The daycare did not make enough money to pay all the household bills, plus cover for shortfalls in Jamie's business. My mama was very ill with arthritis, and my mama was very ill with arthritis, and though that time period was relatively stable in terms of Jamie's drinking, alcoholism still hung over our family like a heavy, dark backdrop. God knew how much we all needed Jamie Lynn in our lives. Years later, when Britney was surprised by her pregnancy with Jaden, I could speak from experience when I told her that these unplanned babies are the ones one Lord Himself insists on being there. Unplanned babies are the ones the Lord Himself insists on being here. They are His plan, not ours. Like Jaden, Jamie Lynn has been dearly loved and has been a great bonus gift to her life. As my pregnancy processed and I became more comfortable with the idea of being a mother again, and even a little bit excited, my worries also grew. How would we even pay for this baby's birth in the hospital when we didn't have health insurance? Brian and Britney were thrilled. Of course, a 10-year-old baby doll-loving girl would be excited to have a new sibling. But even 14-year-old Brian was over the moon for his baby sister. Then again, he was the kind of boy who would kiss me on the cheek when I would walk into a basketball game, while his friends sitting in the bleachers didn't even acknowledge their mothers. He was always go over Jamie Lynn. We all were and still are. On April 4, 1991, Jamie Lynn Spears was born via C-section. Her first name honors her daddy, and her second name is after me. and as a new life always does, the beautiful baby in our arms represented a fresh start. But we still had our problems, and money was at the top of the list. Thank goodness it hadn't occurred to me that I would have to have a C-section because of course, C-sections are far from expensive than natural delivery. Little by little, we were able to pay the hospital back, but it took a long time, overdoing it. About 8 days after Jamie Lynn was born, I had been feeling tired, naturally, and was still sore around my insection site. Although I didn't think there was anything wrong with me beyond the normal sleepless nights every mother of a newborn experiences. One day I was wandering around the house, holding my baby in one arm and roaming around with my other, searching for a missing piece of one of Britney's dance costumes. Suddenly I felt a gush of warmth, and I looked down to see what I was standing in a pool of blood. I called for Jamie to come and slumped down to the floor. Clearly I was hemorrhaging. Jamie picked me up and carried me to the car. There was blood everywhere, and Britney was crying, scared to death about what was happening to me. While I was hospitalized overnight, the doctors told me I had been overdoing it after my C-section, and that it had caused me to hemorrhage. I tried to take it easier on myself after that, having learned that hard way what can happen when you don't. Family of five. Brian and Britney were a huge help with Jamie Lynn, especially Britney. At 10, she and Laura Lynn were devoted little mummies to the baby, helping me rock her, dress her, and feed her. When I was close by, I would allow them to take Jamie Lynn into their playhouse, which was set up like a miniature house with a kitchen and an ironing board and little beds. Britney and Laura Lynn had a real life baby to play house with, and they loved every minute of it. Brian, Parkland Academy's quarterback, giving a pep talk at the pep rally before a game. Brian was very active in sports, and we spent hours doing to his basketball, baseball, and football games. If we weren't sitting on the bleachers somewhere, we were invariably at one of Britney's dance lessons and recitals. Being a mother to Brian, Britney, and Jamie Lynn, I was in my element. Maybe more than at any other time before or since. When I was younger, women these days who are raising young children, carpooling and packing lunches and going on field trips, I am jealous. I loved everything about being a mother. In the midst of Jamie's alcoholism and the constant uncertainty that goes along with a loved one's addiction, motherhood kept me focused, if not sane. I try hard to cook healthy meals and keep a clean, orderly house. I sought out the best schools and church programs for my kids, and I happily slaughtered them. I happily shuttled them to sports events, dance, karate, you name it. Not to mention to their friends' houses for play dates. Some say mothers lose themselves when they raise children, that they become too absorbed with their little ones to pay any attention to themselves. Maybe some do. All I know is being a mother is who I am. I loved rocking my babies, baking cookies, reading stories, snuggling with my children in a tub of popcorn and watching the latest Disney movie. I remember with such fondness things such as first haircuts, when my children learned to swim or ride a bike, at the first and last days of school, because those were the monumental moments of my life too. You may be thinking, gee, Lynn Spears sure didn't have much of a life in those days. But I'll tell you what, it was the life of my dreams, and I would give anything to live that life all over again. All over again. And also, I think of Jamie Lynn as my own miracle baby, a child who was really not supposed to be here, but she came anyway. The loveliest, most expected gift of my life. She has been an old soul since day one, my most reserved, private child. Now, that's not to say she was a serene baby. Jamie Lynn could never sit still. One time, my mama watched Jamie Lynn run circles around us when she was a toddler. Lynn, she said, you got to take care of yourself because you know no one can run after that one. My youngest child always knew exactly what she wanted, what she believed, and how she would live out those beliefs. And she had and has a will of iron ore. If Jamie Lynn wanted something, she was a force of nature, strong, resilient, and competent. Jamie Lynn came to this earth with a mission in mind, and the future will tell us the rest of the story. Adorable 3-year-old Jamie Lynn.